Hey guys, welcome back to this tutorial on Introduction to Python. In the last tutorial, we talked about how we can create variables. Now let's explore more on how we can manipulate our variables and work with them. Now here I'm creating a variable called first name, which is Mariam, last name, which is Bello. As I said earlier, when you're working with numbers, you write the numbers directly, but when you're working with text, you put them in quotes. You can put them in single quotes or double quotes, but it has to be in quotes. That's the way of telling Python that this is a text. So I've created a variable first name and last name, and I also created a variable called age. Now I can print any of this and print my first name, and then it gets printed in my terminal. It gets printed in my terminal, Miriam. It's the same thing as saying print Miriam. So this line, print first name and print Miriam, is the same thing. So I would get the same output for the two lines. So, but it's better to store your values in a variable so that you can have access to it anytime you want, instead of having to write the same value over and over again. Now you can add strings together. I can say print first name plus last name, and this adding variables together is called string concatenation. I remember I told you that strings are variables that are text. They are values that are text. So you can see I've added this together, or it is stacked together. How do I solve this? You simply add a space here. So when you rerun this now, you get two separate values. So that is string concatenation. And note that you cannot add a string plus a number. Let's say I write print plus age. Now it will give me an error because you cannot add two different data types together. You see, it's pointing to where I have the error, and it's saying type error must be string. Str means string, not int. Int means integer. So you can only add two same data types together. So you can add two strings together, or you add two integers together. You cannot add an integer plus a string. So you should take note of that. So that is concatenation. Then I can also use my variables in a text like this. My first name is this is a string, this is a text, so I'm putting it in quotes, plus first name. This is a variable, so I don't have to put it in quotes. If you put it in quotes, then Python will recognize this as a text and not a variable. Then I'm adding it to this order, so plus my last name is last name. So I print this now, I would get my first name is Mariam and my last name is Bello. Also, you can assign multiple variables at once. Something like this: a comma b comma c is equal to 1, 2, and 3. Instead of having to write a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, c is equal to 3, you can just shorten your code by writing this single line, and it makes your code a lot more neater and cleaner. So if you print a, b, and c here, you would get 1, 2, 3 respectively. Okay, multiple variables. I'm getting an error because multiple variables This is an invalid syntax. It's a text, so you cannot write a text in a Python cell unless you are declaring a variable or you put it in strings. You put it in quotes, so it is an invalid syntax. So you get 1, 2, 3. What I did just now is commenting. I commented it out by adding the hash. We'll talk about that much later. So the Python will not see this line as a code. It will skip it. It will not see it. So I'm hiding it from the Python interpreter. That is a short way of saying that. So you can also assign multiple variables to one value. So remember that, so you would notice that this equal sign is an assignment operator. I'm using it to assign values. So in normal mathematics, in our mathematics, we use this equal sign to say that two values are equal. But in Python, it is used for an assignment to assign a value to a variable. So if you print out this D and F, you would get 6 for each of the values. So you see we have 6 and 6. So you can play with this by trying to create different variables and using them in your print function. Remember, you only get better when you practice more. So here I'm defining variables named depth, year, and faculty. This is just a short form of department. So I'm assigning a text to this, and the text I'm assigning is BCH. In this year variable, I'm assigning 2016 year, and in the faculty variable, I'm assigning the text science. So remember I said earlier, if you are writing a text, you put it in quotes. If you are writing a number, you write the number. So here I want to print she is from the faculty of, I'm putting that in quote because it is a text, plus faculty. Faculty is a variable, so I'm not putting it in quotes. So I'm adding it also, and the department of plus depth. So if I print this out, I would get she is from faculty of science and department of BCH. We would look at how we can make this code much more better instead of having to write plus plus plus. We'll look at that in the next tutorial. But before the end of this tutorial, let me quickly show you how to comment in Python. To comment in Python, you would use, if it is a single line commenting, I've said earlier that commenting is a way by which you hide a line from your Python interpreter. So sometimes you may have to explain your code. When you're writing your code, you would need to sometimes add comments so that it makes your code readable for readability, so that when other people look at your code, they will understand what each of the lines mean. So for example, if I'm defining a function now, don't bother about defining a function. This is just to show you an example of how to comment. Only me knows what this function is going to do. So if I want to add a comment to it so that I make my code more understandable for other developers, I can add a comment. And the way to add a comment is simply to put the hash tag. You only write hash, and you write anything you write on this line is a comment. It will not be seen by the Python interpreter, or let me say it will not be executed. It will be seen, but the Python interpreter will not act on it. So I can say this is an arithmetic function. So anyone who sees this my code will know that, oh, whatever comes after this is an arithmetic function. This is just to add readability to your code. And also sometimes when you write something in your code and you add comments, when you come back to your code later, sometimes it may get confusing, but when you add a comment to it, you would remember why you did what you did. So this is for single line comments. Sometimes you might have to explain your code in more than one line. So in such situations, you would need, instead of having to put hash on all the lines, you can just write everything and you put them in quotes. So it can either be a single quote or double quote. So you can write something like this. So if you put this, whatever comes in between these two quotes would be recognized as a comment. Whatever comes in between is going to be a comment, and it will not be executed by the Python interpreter, so it won't give you any error whatsoever. So that is all about commenting. So I will implore you to practice more on creating variables and see how much you can go, how far you can go with that. So do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get notified when I upload new content. See you in the next tutorial. Thank you.